이거 아니다, 아니다.
The story started in a prison where the prisoners were having a slapping game. One of the participants was a big guy, and everyone was sure that he would win. But then, his opponent slapped him pretty hard, causing him to faint instantly. The opponent, a man named Zhong Shik, thought he had claimed the victor. But then, a skinny and innocent-looking man from the crowd challenged him. Seeing the man who was skinny and weak made everyone laugh, thinking he had no chance against Zhong Shik. But the skinny guy, a man named Jo Hyun-soo, ignored their laughter and was confident he would win. To decide who to start first, they played a rock, paper, scissors. Unfortunately, Hyun-soo lost and had to take the first slap. Everyone was sure he would faint in the first turn, but surprisingly, he didn't even fall. It was finally his turn, and he slapped Zhong Shik so hard that he almost fell. Embarrassed by that, Zhong Shik suddenly attacked Hyun-soo, and a big commotion broke out. The prisoners began fighting each other. Hyun-soo, despite being a rather small guy, managed to fight everyone who tried to beat him. Soon, the prison guards showed up and stopped him, because if they didn't, he would have killed Zhong Shik. After the chaos, Hyun-soo was sent to the isolation cell, where he first met a man named Han Jae-ho. At that moment, he said that there were two kinds of people in prison, namely, one he could socialize with and one nobody should ever have a beef with. He then asked which one Jae-ho was, and Jae-ho simply said that he was the one who made the rules there. Since that meeting, the two slowly formed a bond, as if they were fated to meet. The next day, Hyun-soo was told by his friend that nobody would dare to touch him anymore, because everyone found out that Jae-ho had become close to him. The friend then explained why Jae-ho was so respected and feared by everyone. It was revealed that Jae-ho was a trusted right-hand man of a big criminal organization. He made his way to the most feared figure in prison by beating everyone who stood in his path. Nobody ever beat him, and since then, no one dared to oppose him. However, one day, things changed when a new inmate named Kim Sung-han arrived. Sung-han had an even greater reputation than Jae-ho, and everyone feared him even at the mention of his name. His arrival sent fear through the whole prison, and this made Jae-ho worried. The next day, Jae-ho decided to make his move. He approached Sung-han and offered a collaboration for a cigarette business within the prison. But behind that, this was his way to get closer to Sung-han and to read his movements. Not only that, he also didn't want to cause any more trouble since his sentence was almost over. Unfortunately, Sung-han wasn't interested in his offer and just refused it. Right after that, a prisoner came and told Jae-ho that his trusted right-hand man had been caught and beaten severely by the chief warden. Upon hearing that, Jae-ho finally realized that something was fishy with Sung-han. It turned out that he was the chief warden's ally. Jae-ho was so mad and vented it at the chief warden, but that only led to him being beaten and put in the isolation cell. 3 days later, Jae-ho was released from the isolation, and he looked very weak. At that moment, Zhong Shik showed up with a weapon in his hands with the intention to kill him, but fortunately, Hyun-soo appeared out of nowhere and saved Jae-ho. However, instead of thanking Hyun-soo for saving his life, Jae-ho was suspicious. He wondered why Hyun-soo risked his life to save him. Hyun-soo just answered by saying that his mother had taught him to help people who were in trouble. This answer only confused Jae-ho even more, but he also got an idea for revenge. Jae-ho then asked Hyun-soo to come with him to the chief warden's office, saying that he wanted to report a smuggling activity within the prison. Shortly after, upon meeting the chief warden, Hyun-soo showed some evidence about the cigarette smuggling action that Jae-ho had given him earlier. The evidence immediately angered the chief warden, and he slapped Hyun-soo. But then, Jae-ho finally spoke. It was finally revealed that he had used the evidence to blackmail the chief warden. Since all the smuggling activity was under the chief warden's control, Jae-ho used the evidence to make sure the chief warden allied with him and betrayed Sung-han. He revealed that he had sent the evidence to his men outside the prison, and he threatened to reveal that crime to the public if the chief warden still bothered him. Cornered, the chief warden finally complied, and he sided with Jae-ho again. After that, Jae-ho realized that Sung-han's arrival in prison was on a mission, and he suspected that he was the target. So he tortured Sung-han to make him spill the truth. But no matter how hard he beat the man, he could never make him talk. Fortunately, Zhong Shik, who turned out to be Sung-han's subordinate, admitted that they were there to kill Jae-ho under the order of Byung-chul, who turned out to be Jae-ho's boss. Upon hearing this, Jae-ho was both shocked and mad. However, he forced himself to hold back to avoid raising any suspicion. Unbeknownst to everyone, it turned out that Hyun-soo was not just an ordinary inmate, but an undercover cop. He was on a mission to get close to Jae-ho to gain his trust, so he could expose his entire criminal network within and outside the prison. He took this risky task after his superior, Detective In-suk, promised that his terminally ill mother would receive a life-saving kidney transplant. In-suk herself was a ruthless superior who would sacrifice others for the sake of a case. The day when a suitable kidney donor had been found, Hyun-soo was beyond happy, unaware that this moment was the turning point in his life. On the other hand, the bond between him and Jae-ho grew closer each day. One day, Byung-gab, Byung-chul's nephew and Jae-ho's colleague, showed up. Despite his relationship with Byung-chul, Byung-gab had never liked him, especially after he beat him using an ashtray. Upon knowing that his uncle had betrayed Jae-ho, he offered to help Jae-ho take down the crime boss once he was released. However, Jae-ho didn't immediately accept the offer, since in this underworld, no one is truly anyone's ally. At the same time, Jae-ho was also suspicious of Hyun-soo. He had asked Byung-gab to investigate the young man's background, but to no avail. On the other hand, Hyun-soo was so happy that his mother was about to be saved, but that happiness ended soon after. At that moment, his mother was having a call when suddenly she was seen lying lifeless on the road, on her own blood. The news of his mother's death, of course, devastated Hyun-soo. He couldn't accept the fact that his mother had to die just when she finally had hope to be healthy again. On the other hand, Jae-ho could only see what happened and felt the sadness in Hyun-soo's heart. That night, Hyun-soo called In-suk so he could be allowed to see his mother for one last time during her funeral. But In-suk refused him without the slightest hesitation, saying that he was not a good prisoner and it would be hard for her to make that request. Hyun-soo didn't give up and begged to be allowed to attend his mother's funeral. But In-suk seemed indifferent. This made him mad, and he threatened to reveal their mission if his request wasn't complied with. However, In-suk revealed her trump card. She threatened that if he dared to expose his mission, she would make him a real criminal and he would spend his life in prison. He couldn't believe that his own superior had the heart to do that to him. He had no choice but to comply. However, the very next day, the chief warden unexpectedly granted Hyun-soo a temporary release so he could attend his mother's funeral. He also handed him the address of his mother's funeral and informed him that Jae-ho had covered all the expenses. Upon returning to the prison, Jae-ho immediately went to see Hyun-soo. He knew that after what had happened to his mother, Hyun-soo desperately needed someone by his side. They had a long conversation, and in that moment, Jae-ho revealed his dark past, which shaped him into the man he was. He then told Hyun-soo to never put his faith in promises. Instead, he needed to learn to feel who was truly sincere toward him, and only then would he know who to trust. After that, Jae-ho suddenly asked if Hyun-soo would be willing to become his subordinate after they were both released. Faced with that question, Hyun-soo stared at Jae-ho. He remembered how In-suk refused to let him attend his mother's funeral, and how Jae-ho, the criminal that he was targeting, instead stood by his side. After thinking about it, he finally made up his mind. He confessed his real identity to Jae-ho and his mission. Long story short, Jae-ho was finally released, and after a while, Hyun-soo was also released. As he walked out of the prison gate, he saw Jae-ho waiting to pick him up. Later that night, Jae-ho brought Hyun-soo to a party, and there for the first time he met Byung-chul and Byung-gab. It was clear that Byung-gab didn't like Hyun-soo at all, and he provoked a fight. However, Byung-chul intervened and instead beat him in front of everyone before things got worse. The next day, Byung-chul summoned Byung-gab and instructed him to kill Jae-ho after their next massive transaction with a Russian mafia. He then revealed that this transaction required a special stamp to pass through a checkpoint, and unfortunately, that stamp belonged to a vicious man named Captain Choi, so he still needed Jae-ho to get that stamp.
삼촌, 제가 다 확인했습니다.
네가 나라면 회장님 다치실 뻔했잖아 이 새끼야. 살살 들어.
Shortly after, Jae-ho and Hyun-soo received the mission to retrieve the stamp and went to meet Captain Choi. At the same time, the police were also monitoring their every move because Hyun-soo was still connected to In-suk through a tracking device. Upon meeting Captain Choi, Hyun-soo tried to purchase the stamp with a large sum of money, but as the man reached for the check, Hyun-soo stabbed his hand, and a brawl immediately broke out. Meanwhile, Jae-ho was waiting outside when he noticed more of Captain Choi's men showed up. He knew something had happened inside, and he quickly joined the fight. At the same time, Hyun-soo was struggling against his opponents when more of the enemy arrived. Fortunately, Jae-ho showed up and saved the day. right when Hyun-soo was fighting a big man. They worked together to take the big man down, and fortunately, after a brutal fight, they finally managed to defeat their enemies. Soon after, Hyun-soo noticed something wrong with his watch, and soon he realized that it was fitted with a bug. Without hesitation, he smashed that watch against Captain Choi, shattering it completely. This action gave him a window of time to avoid the police from sniffing around, because after leaving that place, their destination was a meeting place that the police shouldn't know. Shortly after, they finally arrived at their next destination. Jae-ho told Hyun-soo to wait outside while he met the client alone, a clear sign that he still hadn't completely put his faith in Hyun-soo. While Jae-ho went inside, Hyun-soo walked out by himself, when suddenly someone pulled him and handed him another watch. But then, just as they were chatting, Jae-ho showed up. To avoid suspicion, Hyun-soo suddenly punched the man and made an excuse, saying that the toilet inside was smelly, so he decided to relieve himself outside. But then he was bothered by this man. Upon hearing this, Jae-ho suddenly hit the man a few more times, so Hyun-soo had to drag him away to make him stop. Shortly after, Jae-ho confronted Hyun-soo about the man earlier, because despite working together as a team, he was still wary about Hyun-soo, and moreover, he also knew that the man earlier was a police officer. Hyun-soo immediately explained that the officer only came to give him a new watch. After that, Jae-ho apologized to Hyun-soo for suspecting him. He then took Hyun-soo somewhere, and upon arrival, he said that he had been betrayed by so many people in his life. Even someone he had trusted for decades had tried to backstab him, and that made him hard to trust anyone. Listening to this, Hyun-soo said that he wouldn't force Jae-ho to believe him, but instead, he would be the one who would believe in Jae-ho. His word moved Jae-ho. Long story short, 2 days before the big transaction, Byung-gab had a meeting with Jae-ho. At that moment, it was finally revealed that Byung-gab and Jae-ho knew Hyun-soo's true identity back when they were still in prison, but instead of killing Hyun-soo, they chose to use him. They hired someone to kill Hyun-soo's mother, and after that, Jae-ho would pretend to care to gain Hyun-soo's trust. Their plan turned out to be a success. Hyun-soo believed Jae-ho so much that he admitted his real identity to him. That same day, Hyun-soo was visiting his mother's grave, when someone put a bag on his head and kidnapped him. They claimed that they were ordered by Jae-ho, but Hyun-soo refused to believe it. It turned out that this was nothing but a loyalty test done by In-suk. Fortunately, Hyun-soo managed to keep his mouth shut about his cooperation with Jae-ho. After that, Hyun-soo asked In-suk if she had found the person who murdered his mother. It turned out that behind all this, the police had actually found out about the murder and the perpetrator long ago, but decided to keep it a secret so as not to mess up with Hyun-soo's mission. It was revealed that it was Jae-ho who orchestrated the murder and used a cunning trick to manipulate Hyun-soo to work for him. But despite knowing all that, the police decided to keep it a secret so that it wouldn't mess up the mission. They even let Hyun-soo put his full trust in Jae-ho so they could get more information about Jae-ho. They simply sacrificed Hyun-soo for the sake of their mission. Later that day, Hyun-soo returned to Jae-ho, but he decided not to say anything about his meeting with In-suk. On the other hand, seeing Hyun-soo's face covered in bruises, Jae-ho asked what happened, but again, Hyun-soo refused to say anything, so he dropped the subject. After that, the two went to the beach, and there, they lit the fireworks and had a good time together. They looked genuinely happy playing together, and in that moment, they stopped doubting one another and decided to trust each other. Finally, the day of the big transaction arrived. Before the transaction, Hyun-soo handed In-suk the information regarding the time, location, and parties involved. The chosen location for the deal turned out to be a cruise ship docked at the port. Later, as soon as both groups met, one of Jae-ho's men suddenly realized that something was strange, and soon after, the police showed up before them. They had surrounded the location and were ready to arrest them. In-suk herself went to check the crates there to find evidence of the transaction, but to her surprise, he couldn't find anything there. She then proceeded to check another box, but again, there was nothing suspicious inside. She had no choice but to let the criminals walk away. Unbeknownst to her, the actual transaction point was somewhere else, and the organization had managed to secure its transaction. After the incident, although they had successfully tricked the cops, doubts were clear in the air. Despite that, they decided to just celebrate their success. But just as Byung-chul raised his glass for a toast, Jae-ho suddenly said that he wouldn't drink with a corpse. Suddenly, he shot Byung-chul dead, and with that action, he finally took over all the power and control of the entire organization.
얘 안 죽었어.
Meanwhile, In-suk realized that Hyun-soo had tricked her, so she finally used her trump card. She asked Hyun-soo to meet, and upon meeting, she finally revealed everything about his mother's murder and about Jae-ho, who pretended to care for him to use him as his tool. She also showed evidence to make Hyun-soo believe her. After discovering who his mother's killer was, Hyun-soo completely snapped. He demanded an explanation as to why the police had kept this a secret from him. In-suk insisted that she was worried that their mission would fall apart if Hyun-soo found out the truth sooner. Despite anything In-suk told him, Hyun-soo no longer cared about his mission anymore. There was only one thing on his mind, and it was to avenge his mother's death, and his only choice at that moment was to follow the instructions of the police so he could do that. Soon after, Hyun-soo called Jae-ho, pretending to give him information about a mole inside the organization. He asked if anyone besides Jae-ho knew his identity as a police officer in the organization. Jae-ho knew Byung-gab also knew about Hyun-soo's real identity, and that instantly put suspicion in him. Hyun-soo also informed Jae-ho that the police would raid them the very next day to seize their goods, so they had to clear out immediately and run with the goods that very night. Hyun-soo then arranged to meet at a place Jae-ho once showed him. Behind this, it turned out that the police were planning to force Jae-ho to flee with the goods so they could capture him red-handed. Later that evening, Jae-ho called Byung-gab to his office to confront him about his betrayal. Byung-gab tried his best to convince Jae-ho that he wasn't betraying him, but no matter what he said, Jae-ho had lost his trust in him, and that very moment, he was killed. On the other hand, Hyun-soo headed to meet Jae-ho while In-suk and her team were monitoring not far from there. Soon after, Jae-ho, who had done his business with Byung-gab, showed up. Upon arrival, he immediately noticed that something was off. He knew that Hyun-soo had betrayed him, but he decided to play along. He then went inside the building and faced Hyun-soo. When they met, both finally came clean. Jae-ho said that he had found out about the police, while Hyun-soo said that he had found out that Jae-ho was the killer of his mother. Upon hearing that, Jae-ho took a gun from his suit and pointed it at Hyun-soo. However, Hyun-soo wasn't afraid the slightest, saying that Jae-ho wouldn't kill him because he still needed him to escape. Soon after, the police raided the building, but when they entered, they only found Hyun-soo alone. But then, they were bombarded by bullets because it turned out that Jae-ho was still there, hiding from the police. During the gunfight, one officer used Hyun-soo as bait to force Jae-ho out, but Hyun-soo fought back. When Hyun-soo was cornered, Jae-ho finally showed up and shot the police officer dead. In the end, only Jae-ho and Hyun-soo remained in the room. However, Jae-ho still couldn't bring himself to shoot Hyun-soo, so he chose to leave. But as he was about to leave, a car driven by In-suk hit him. In-suk then came out of the car and was about to take him, but suddenly Hyun-soo appeared and immediately shot In-suk in the head. He then killed Jae-ho too by shooting him in the chest, finally avenging his mother's death.